What's up, champions of the realm? It's me, JC, the MMO Legend. Once again returning from the dungeons of the internet with epic informational loot for your brain's gear score. This time, I would like to talk about a game that has really divided the MMO community, so much so that I am honestly reluctant to even say anything about this game. However, I believe as a MMO creator, it is my personal responsibility to report on all major MMOs. So, begrudgingly, I played the hit new free MMO that looks like something out of the 90s. That's right, I played Dreadmyst. Dreadmyst is a single developer passion project. It's created by a person who goes by the alias Xjum. They are also known as Gummy52. The fact that was somewhat controversial, but if you've seen the WoW videos where he was running a Burning Crusade Warcraft private server, it's pretty clear that they are indeed the same person. Gummy, or Xjum, is somewhat notorious in the WoW private server scene for unexpectedly shutting down his own projects. People seem to fall into different camps on this issue. One camp being that he provided a server at no cost to the players, so they have no right to be upset with any unexpected shutdown. The other camp being that they've invested their time into the server, so he should at least give them a warning of end of service. I think another thing is that some people believe that he faked a cease and desist notice from Blizzard as a way to get out of continuing a project that he started. Therefore, he is untrustworthy. He will make something up to get out of his responsibility to his players when he no longer finds it fun. In order to be fair to Xjum, though, this is just hearsay at this point. This does raise what I find to be an interesting dilemma and philosophical question when it comes to MMOs. Are MMO players entitled to their characters that they've spent many hours working on? Are they entitled to the sweat of their brow even? Alright, let's just talk about the game. It's been made with completely store-bought assets. The store that he bought them from itself is quite shady. A third-party Chinese website that appears to have either stolen or borrowed the assets for the sound effects and spell icons from Ion 1. To be fair, as of today, 117, he has already begun swapping the assets out for new ones. Alright, let's talk about the game itself. Starting with the positives, the movement and combat feel very snappy. It's traditional tab target that was made famous by Warcraft and transposed onto a 2D isometric game world, complete with buffs, debuffs, CCs, melee, range, dots. You know the drill. It's a simple system. Many people are already acquainted with Warcraft-style combat, and it works. I played a cleric, and I felt that it played very similarly to a priest, but with a slight twist being that there are some extra melee abilities. The game uses a spendable experience system that is somewhat similar to a nearly forgotten classic, Asheron's Call. It's refreshing to see this system used again by a newer title. I think that many players today have never encountered a system like this, so it is new to them. Using this system, a player is able to create a lot of build diversity through different allotments of stat points. You can also get pretty in-depth here on the point usage. It has everything from core stats like strength and intelligence to more obscure ones like magic crit, block chance, lockpick, and bartering. The itemization of this game is pretty entertaining too. Drops come early and frequently throughout the game. The gear in the game comes in different levels and rarities. The higher level and rarity items have additional stats to empower your character to the maximum. The gear seems to have random combinations of stats on it though. This can be fun because you can get items like plate mail with agility or ranged on it, but you can also get a lot of crappy items that frankly don't make sense for any build, like a bow with shield skill on it, which is surprisingly common. However, I think the leveling in this game is one of its strongest points. The ride from 1 to 20 is very fun. I played a cleric to level 25, and I ran the barracks, which is the first endgame dungeon, a couple of times. I also played the 3 other classes, mage, ranger, and paladin, to at least level 10 to get a feel for their playstyles. They were all fun. Ranger can machine gun blast arrows off and finish enemies with a couple cool dagger moves. The mage can use a combination of fireballs and frost moves to kite and deal heavy burst damage. The paladin is this game's only melee character, and they can charge, stun, power attack, etc. They are the traditional tank of the game. All of these classes were fun, but I think a rage-based character like a warrior or a berserker would really round out the roster nicely in the future. The CRPG aspect of this game, I think, is the main factor in what makes it so fun to level and progress in. The emphasis of the game journey is on the player character and their growth in power. Number go up brain enjoyers will definitely find a lot to enjoy here. Once I was working on my 3rd character, I had my early game strategy dialed in. I was looting absolutely everything that wasn't nailed down and vendoring frequently, spending all my gold at the merchants in town to build out the best possible gear setup for my level, and I was demolishing my way through the early game, and it was very fun. Once you hit the 20s though, the game does slow down quite a bit. There's no more quests. You are cut loose in a small area full of minotaurs and lesser worms. That's a fancy word for dragon. You basically just grind out the last 5 levels. However, at this point, you are also collecting keys, which are essential for beginning the endgame gear progression. This is also where PvP begins, and it uses an optional flagging system, but there is no penalty that I could see for being killed by another player, other than the time it takes to run back. This is a popular system, basically the same as what Warcraft used, and it's a good choice. I had a few fun fights myself. I also got ganked a few times. Every time I got killed by a high-level player, or there weren't enough monsters to go around, I simply hopped to another channel, tried again, and most of the time that works. The barracks are pretty fun. It's a solo dungeon that is the introduction to the endgame gear grind. There are a few fights you might have to CC a monster in order to win. The final boss has a few mechanics that you will need to either interrupt or overcome by exploiting the environment. Overall, I think that it is a good bridge to more skill-demanding content, and I would love to see this game consider some kind of Mythic Plus or dungeon scaling system somewhere down the road. I have a lot of criticisms though when it comes to the UI and simple quality of life stuff. The chat window I find is absolutely horrendous. It's just a never-ending stream of people selling different items. It's so bad that I really just can't be bothered to use it to try to gear out my character. They need to add chat filters, tabs, or maybe some kind of marketplace. It doesn't have to be an auction house necessarily, but some way to sort through the chaos of server chat would be huge. Also, shift-click item comparisons would be really nice, as many people have stated. I also felt the game was rather lonely, especially without bringing any friends. I made one friend while leveling, and that was it. I think more content that encourages group play as an alternate route to max level would be solid. Also, adding some kind of dice system for loot would be very nice. Giving trade chat its own category, I think, would probably encourage people to interact in-game as well. Overall, I think that this game obviously has a somewhat shaky foundation with the assets, the developer history, the source code, whatever. Personally, I don't care. I think this game is a paradigm on how to make a good MMO. It honestly looks like crap. I was not excited to play it, but it plays like fire, and that's the most important thing. It just feels undeniably good to play. MMO developers should be looking at this game and trying to understand how to make a damn game. So, with that said, I will be optimistically watching for future content releases for Dreadmyst. A new map, some quality of life, more reasons to group up with players, maybe even an 8-player raid, PvP battlegrounds, who knows? Thanks for watching this Dreadmyst impression video. I had a lot of fun making this one. If you haven't already checked it out, it's free on Steam. Go play it for an hour, and I dare you to quit. If you haven't already, like and subscribe. It helps me to grow my channel. Next week, I hope to have some Darkfall, Rise of Aegon impressions for you all.